for a lot of people, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only option that they know of when they realize they need some help and some support to stop drinking. They have an experience that tells them this really just isn't the right fit for me. And that's completely okay.
I started to realize that my words had a shit ton of power. And what I called myself, now I was going to become. I was going to continue to believe this thing had power over me. And I didn't like that, which meant then I was going to fear it. And I had a problem with how that was framed in my mind. I wanted different language because I didn't want that to be identifying. I didn't want it to be part of my identity anymore.
I didn't feel comfortable calling myself an alcoholic, mostly for like a linguistic perspective of like more than anything else, right? We don't call people cigarette-aholics. I don't call myself an Instagram-aholic. This word I feel like is outdated. And I think there's a lot of words from the 1930s that I wouldn't use today, right?
What was your expectation of AA? And then the longer I was there, the longer I realized they have an expectation of you being in AA. And so, you're expected to share, you're expected to sponsor, you're expected to have sponsors, you're expected to have sponsees, to go to workshops. And it's like you're drinking a Kool-Aid to where it's like you're all in. And there's no like, maybe it's okay to be half-ass at this instead of like all the way in. But at one time I was an alcoholic, but now I don't choose to say I'm an alcoholic. And it's a closed-minded thinking process that can be very uncomfortable to go to when you're already uncomfortable in a way to drink.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and personal growth is the key to loving your sober life. We're your hosts, Julie Miller and Steve Knapp. Join us in conversations with people all over the globe about how you can thrive, not just survive, in a life without alcohol. Before we jump into the episode, we've got an announcement for our regular listeners. If you've followed us since the beginning, as so many of you have, you'll know how much we've changed and evolved over the years.
So we're going to rebrand the podcast to No Alcohol Needed in the new year to reflect the growth and the evolution that we've experienced. Basically, we're leveling up. So you're going to see some new colors, a new logo, a slightly new vibe, but it'll still be the same hosts doing the same thing. We're having meaningful conversations that help you learn how to be happy, no alcohol needed.
We'll announce more in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out on social media and our website for the new logo and all of the changes. We'll roll right into the new year with great new content aimed at personal growth, emotional intelligence, and real happiness in sobriety.
Okay, let's dig into this week's conversation. All right, welcome everybody. So happy to have you here. Welcome to Alex and welcome to Barkley. And of course, to all of our listeners, we are just thrilled to be hanging out with you today. We're going to dig into a conversation about how to get sober without AA if you've realized that it's just not worked for you. For a lot of people, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only option that they know of when they realize they need some help and some support to stop drinking. And they go and whatever, they have an experience that tells them this really just isn't the right fit for me. And that's completely okay. We're not here to knock AA. It's been a wonderful thing for so many years and it's helped so many people. It also isn't the only option. And for some people, it just isn't the right fit. So we're going to talk today about what it looks like if you realize it's not the right fit for you. We know a lot of people are out there just, they realize that's not where they want to be, but they have no idea what else to do instead. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Before we jump into it, I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. And Alex, I'm going to let you start us off.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's my second time on Through the Glass Recovery. And I have been alcohol free for, it's going to be 7 years this coming April, which is wild to me. And I quit drinking in 2019. I joined an online program to quit drinking. And I since then it was an amazing program, but I felt like I was missing some aspects that I needed, which is why I ended up going and creating my own program, which is Sober Girls Yoga. And it's not really my entire focus anymore, but it was a big part of my life for a long time. I was doing these sober 30-day and 60-day yoga challenges for women, and that still exists in kind of an on-demand format. I'm doing less live online programs that are in that specific area because I've kind of evolved into yoga retreats and trainings. And I live in Bali now in Indonesia. And I actually opened up my own yoga studio space at my villa. And so when I'm hosting groups here, I have lots of sober and sober curious women who come, but I also have people who are, walking other journeys. And it's a beautiful community and space. So that's my story.
So cool. I love what you've done. It's been really neat to just watch your story evolve over the years. I know I followed you for a really long time, and it's awesome to see where you've gotten to and watch you kind of follow your heart and see where it leads you. So thanks so much for being here and hanging
Yeah,
out with
thank
us.
you.
We appreciate it. And then, of course, we've got Barkley is back also. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. Good to be here again as a repeat guest. My sobriety date is February 10th, 2019. So I'll be, 7 years in February. So
Mhm.
that's, my first AA meeting was July of '06. And it's been, stopping and starting a lot, through the years and many periods of sobriety. And I've just, mixed and tried, so many different things. Celebrate Recovery has been a part of that as well. I found that Celebrate Recovery is a little bit more open than AA can be a little bit more, uh, my experience has been a little bit more disciplined, and then Celebrate Recovery is a little bit more open to let you kind of be who you need to be. And AA kind of puts you in a box, I feel like, in many ways. But I've jumped around with, a small group at church. I got a therapist. I reached out to an old sponsor from Texas. I've had 3 sponsors in Virginia, Texas, and Louisiana. And the one in Texas I really connected with, so I kind of reached out to him after kind of getting rid of my last sponsor. And then I just reached out to old rehab friends, and that's kind of been my kind of mixing and matching, different elements to keep me sober and, to have people that I can trust that open up to and ask me the questions of, where are you? How are you doing? What does it look like? And,
Uh-huh.
so it's been a journey of not really liking AA too much and stepping back from it to, it's changed so much that I don't even really think about alcohol anymore. So it doesn't really like phase me anymore. So I can go to Vegas by myself and, like, and that would be frowned upon in AA. And I'm like getting the perfect shot, getting my little AA, non-alcoholic, beer with the, Vegas background. I just think that's badass, and people in AA would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Sheila,
Right.
what are you doing? And I'm like,
We're going to pause right here for just a second so I can take a moment to share something that I'm really excited about. I'm hosting a free workshop about finding your values and learning to use them to get some clarity in your recovery and in your life. This is for the people who keep saying, I don't know who I am anymore, or I quit drinking, but I'm still just not happy. Most of you have heard me talk about values more times than I can count here on the podcast, and I have put together all the research I've done and all of my own personal experience, and I've created an interactive workshop that is going to help you find the same understanding that I have. This is a great opportunity to head into the new year with an actual map of where you're heading, not just a random New Year's resolution. If you'd like to join me at no cost to you, visit my website at createalifesoful.com and click on free resources to sign up.
I'm feeling me, bro. So it's been a journey. It's been a hard journey. It's been a rewarding journey. But I'm here today, and it doesn't have the same effect like it did in July of 2006.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys both so much for being here. We'll just kind of dive into this a little bit. I would love to hear kind of what you expected from AA before you went. I know most people kind of have this picture in their head. What is Louder Milk? Is that the name of the show? I think like if you watch, for me, when I watched that, it was like, that's exactly what I imagined an AA meeting to be like. So I think we all have like this picture in our head, but what did you expect from AA before you went? And how was it? How did it fit that? Or, what was the actual experience like? I would love to hear what that experience was for you guys.
Do you want to go first, Alex?
I'll share because I came to AA in a really interesting roundabout way, which is like I actually didn't join AA in my initial sobriety. I did this online program, and so that was what I was doing for a long time. And one of the reasons I didn't join AA in the early days was because I was in the Middle East, and it was like kind of a taboo thing. There wasn't really a lot of AA happening. There were 3 meetings a week, but you had to like text a guy to get the address. Like it just wasn't as huge as it is in other places I'm aware of now, and like as public and organized. And so I think that was one of the reasons I kept it in my online program. But I also think I felt a bit of like resistance and fear and stigma around like what AA would be and what I have to identify as like an alcoholic to be there. And so I actually wasn't part of AA until this past January. So I went into AA at 5 years something of sobriety. The reason why I joined AA was not because I was having an issue with alcohol. It was because in my time of sobriety, I had transferred my addiction to Instagram.
Hmm.
And I was using Instagram in the same way I was using alcohol. I was addicted to the dopamine. I was addicted to the engagement. And when I got off
Hmm.
Instagram, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a sober community because my sober community is from Instagram. So I need an in-person community. So I went into my first AA meeting, and it what would I have expected versus what would it be? I honestly can't even remember what I expected versus what it was. But I can tell you, so I'm no longer going to the AA meetings, and I went for a long time this year, and I can tell you about like what I didn't like about it, or I don't know if that's the next question. I'm jumping
Yeah,
ahead,
we'll
but
we'll get there.
so I'll just leave it at that and say I don't know what I expected. Um, but I definitely, how did it meet? I don't know. There were aspects of it that I didn't, I guess what I'll say is there are aspects that I didn't expect that I really loved. I'll share that. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't expecting to love all the prayer and the sayings, and many of those prayers I say in my head, like the serenity prayer at the end of chanting. I'll say that in my head like a few times before. I did it this morning before I taught a yoga class, and so there's aspects of it that I didn't realize like this part I would love so much. And the people that were there, I wasn't expecting to really love and connect with a lot of the people too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I know that, even Steve with the serenity prayer, that was something he held on to for a long time in the early days. And what, you had it on one of your 24-hour chip, is that what it was, Steve? I remember you
The
talking about that.
24-hour chip, it's actually still in my wallet. Even I haven't gone to AA since after my first year. Like I haven't gone to. I think I went to a meeting when I was like 2.5 years sober, and I was like, "Yep, this is why I don't go there." But um, I mean, that was true. I think I remember calling Julie after, and I'm going, "Yeah, that's just not for me. It's just a different. It's a different vibe. Still, what it was before. It's not the peg where my round hole fits, and if that's whatever, you know what I mean." I think I butchered that, but it was kind of
Yes,
funny
you
when it
did.
come out of my mouth.
Absolutely.
Um,
Square
but
peg, round hole.
There you go.
yeah, and
That's
Yeah.
the one. That's
that's
the
the
one.
that yeah, my
You were
my square
definitely
peg
the
doesn't
square
fit in
peg.
that round hole, and I think I wanted to do it the other way around because my experience, Barkley, you said something like it didn't fit into that box anymore. I was curious about what was
Yeah.
outside of the box that
Yeah.
that safety created. The serenity prayer, like I said, I still have that chip, and it's still in my wallet. And the serenity prayer, although it's not something that I think about very much anymore, it, there's so much value in the serenity prayer in itself, even if you remove the word God from it. Like if
Mm.
you can remove the whole spirituality from the serenity prayer, and it's a fantastic lesson to live your life
Yeah.
by.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just is. It lets you think about the things that you can and can't control,
Yeah.
And it actually helps give the pause
Yeah.
to create the wisdom, because I think the wisdom happens in the pause,
Yeah.
and to create the wisdom to let go of the things that you need to let go of, or
Yeah.
decide what to do. But from my experience for AA, like I don't know what I expected, because for me it was a very abrupt thing. I quit on a Sunday night and I went to a meeting on a Monday morning, and on a Monday night. And before that, I had never thought about quitting anywhere close to seriously enough to figure out what help was going to look like. So it was just
Yeah.
the first place I dove into. It was also the first place I really knew existed, that was there to help people that were like me. And I was about to say, unfortunately, like me, because that's the way I felt at that time.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, this is the problem that I have to
Yeah.
deal with, and I was ashamed of that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was the first place I found truth. It was the first place I found other people talking about their truth, and it was the first place that I found that it was safe for me to say mine. As much as it was a part of my recovery, now it's only, I'm coming up on maybe 5 years in March, so I guess I can actually say that, because it's not that far away, but it is now only like, 20% of the time I spent. But man, did I ever spend a lot of time at the beginning. It sure helped me, but I'm also very happy that I've discovered other means, other pathways, different people to talk about, different people to talk with,
Yeah.
and really experience life outside of that.
Yeah.
What about you, Barkley?
I mean, I really didn't have any expectations. I was thinking about my first meeting today, and I just knew that I had an ace in the pocket where this was the last resort. This was like the last stand. AA. This is the one. This is gonna do it. And it was what I needed at the time, and it's what I needed in Virginia. It's what I needed in Texas. It's what I needed when I moved to Louisiana. So they've all. It's so my experiences at that moment in time, it was something that I needed for sure, for structure, for accountability. So I don't want to bash AA, because it's like saying Pulp Fiction is a terrible movie, but somebody else might be like, no, that's a badass movie. I was like, well, that's my experience with that movie. And so it's the same kind of thing of like, please don't take that I'm trying to bash AA. I mean, I still use the principles today. I funny story real quick. I approached a woman online too quickly, and I came back and made an amends of like, hey, I'm so sorry that I probably approached this too quickly. And so, I made amends for something that I thought was wrong. And that's just AA 101. And so it has been there when I've really needed it. And it's just one of those pieces that I'll always be grateful for. But I didn't know what to expect. And I was honestly really scared. I was scared about opening up, scared about sharing. But the more I did that, the more I found those random strangers that made me feel at home. And so as my desire to drink lessened, I felt like it was a less of a, critical piece in my sobriety, to where I didn't I didn't have to do like the 90 meetings in 90 days. Cause it's like, I don't know the last time I thought about drinking or going out to have alcohol. And so it's certainly, if I was new to sobriety, I would definitely recommend doing AA and finding your journey through AA. If that means Celebrate Recovery, if that means nothing, if that means church, if that means meditation. I mean, there's Buddhism. I mean, there's all sorts of different avenues that you could replace your addiction with in a healthy way. And if you can find that, the biggest thing is to thy own self be true, which is the foundation of all of it. If you can be true with yourself, and that's a very hard thing to do as addicts, if you can honestly do that, then you can choose how you want to stay sober and what that looks like for you, you know? So
Mhm.
that's my experience with and you know, that they, I'm looking at all my chicken scratch here. I mean, I went and worked at Addiction Recovery Center, and they didn't like that. Uh, you know, me drinking non-alcoholic beer, they didn't like that. Me going on these trips to Texas or to Vegas or Virginia by myself to go see concerts, they didn't like that. And so we've got enough critics in our life, mainly family. That's a lot of our stories are family related stories. And it's like, I don't need any more critics here. I don't need somebody telling me how to live my life. I've done that already. Like, I need y'all to be, you know, I need you to be on my side, you know?
Mhm.
And sometimes you found it and sometimes you didn't find it, you know? So it's like a tale of two cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, depending on that meeting, that vibe, that experience, that, you know, that circle of crowd, I guess. But,
Yeah.
you know, that's
Yeah, and
kind
I
of my
think
experience.
what all of you are saying really reflects, I think, it's an important point that there are really good parts of AA. There are really great things that it does, really
Yeah.
important needs that it meets. It also isn't always everything that someone needs. And so again, with, just to reiterate, we're not here to bash AA by any means because it holds
Yeah.
so much value. It just
Right.
isn't always what someone needs. I will say from my own experience, I've been to exactly one AA meeting, and it was Steve's 1 year anniversary. And he invited me to come to the Zoom meeting. So I actually introduced myself and said, "My name is Julie and I'm an alcoholic." It was the first time I'd ever said those words. I did not like the way that that felt, but I was trying
Yeah.
to be respectful. I don't have a problem with saying that now. It's still not a word that I use to like identify myself. But
Yeah.
I live in a really small town. I live in a town of 350 people. We do have a local AA meeting, and it is held every Friday night at 7 p.m. at the medical clinic that is
Mm.
on the highway that every single person drives by on their way home from work on Friday night. And like I was super involved in my community. I was like running 4-H programs, and I was like on this committee and that committee and whatever. And so if anybody drove by that building on their way home from work on Friday night, they would see my car parked in front of the medical clinic and they would know exactly where I was and what was going on. And for me, anonymity was really important. I was still drowning in a lot of shame. I didn't need my entire town to know, because
Yeah.
when you live in a town of 350 people, if one person sees your car,
Mhm.
350 people are going to know that it was there, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that was just like that. It absolutely didn't feel like an option for me at the
Yeah.
time. And so, yeah, I didn't even have anything against AA necessarily. I didn't know anything about it, but it wasn't going to be the place that I turned. The next closest meeting was like an hour and a half away, and that just wasn't
Yeah.
realistic with 2 kids at home. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys are going to be the ones speaking a lot more from experience here as far as what AA has been like. I will say I've run into so many people that are like, AA is the only way to do this. You're never going to stay
Mm.
sober, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, I've been sober for 4 years and I've never really been to an AA meeting. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
And it's not all people are like that. Not all AA people are like that. I know that now because I have some people that AA is their primary program for recovery and they're phenomenal and they are super supportive of whatever works for me. But there are those
Yeah.
people who are so just my way or the highway, right?
Yeah.
And so I definitely had some experience with that early on, especially. I remember apologizing to my kid, and I was in this community where we typed out our experiences and shared them in a group, and I apologized to one of my kids for something that I'd done when I was drinking. This guy
Mm.
jumped on me and attacked me. I was like 30 days sober, and it had
Yeah.
been weighing on my heart every minute of those 30 days. And so I went and had a conversation with her, and he was like, "You had no right to do step 4 before you did step 2," or I don't remember what it was. And I was like, "Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
dude." And we're good friends now, me and that guy, but it took us some time. we
Yeah.
we both had some things to learn. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I feel bad for people who have that as their first experience, because I've also met some great people, and I hate that those people ruin it for everyone, because I do think that AA has a lot to offer.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's been a little bit of my experience, I guess.
I mean,
Um,
a
Go ahead,
lot
Steve.
of my experience for having left is because of those sticks in the mud.
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
That is
Yes.
literally why I left after my 1 year. It was the sticks in the mud, the lack of acceptance of stuff that seemed fairly normal to me.
Yeah.
That was and it's not like it was doing any drugs or outside of that. Like I had people tell me that my friends weren't alcoholics because they didn't go to AA, and I'm like, well, we're another sober group, and let me tell you, some of the stories I've heard from them are just as bad as mine, if not yours too. Like, you know what I mean? We all
They
come
didn't
from a
want us
different
to
place,
come to your 1 year thing, right? Like,
right?
because
They
we
didn't
Really?
weren't.
want to, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
They
wow.
told me that
Wow.
you guys weren't sober.
Oh,
right.
wow.
So it left a sour taste in my mouth, and like we'll say over and over and over again, that's not what a lot of these groups are. And if you do go and look and you do go and find, there are plenty of other groups out there and it's just a matter of what do you want for yourself? And I know you don't know that. I didn't know that when I was looking for it. I just tried new things and went to a new Zoom meeting that was a different style that is actually very much like this podcast now. But
Hmm.
uh and that's what I connected with. I connected with active live conversation. I connected with somebody interrupting me because they were like, I want to help you. I want to like um I want to have that conversation, and I want to have that crosstalk, and I want to have that back and forth. And I
Yeah.
realized that it was part of that exchange that was super, super cool to me. And it was part of that exchange where I got to continue to be curious about myself within the conversation at the time of me speaking. I grew so much because of that. And I also grew a crap ton because of the foundation I got back in AA. Like
Yeah.
it was the cement that the house was built on, and the
Yeah.
house ended up being built. It looks fantastic now, and it is built of a whole bunch of other things other than concrete.
Yeah.
So before we dive into like what that looks like now and some of the other things we've explored, Alex, I want to go back to where you talked about like how did you know that AA wasn't the place that you belonged? What were some of the signals that you got, and how did you finally decide to like follow your heart on that one?
Yeah. So I was part of one fellowship and one part of Bali. And I didn't feel comfortable calling myself an alcoholic, mostly for like a linguistic perspective of like
Mm.
more than anything else, right? We don't call people cigaretteaholics. I don't call myself an Instagramaholic. I just like, this word I feel like is outdated. And I think there's a lot of words from the 1930s that I wouldn't use today, right? And this can be one of
Mm.
them. And so I didn't use that word. And I actually don't think I explained it to people, but I just said, I'm in recovery or I'm whatever. And I didn't realize like what a big issue it was. And I didn't like everyone in the meetings kept going on and on about how calling themselves an alcoholic had changed their life. And I was like, wow, that's so, because I wasn't realizing it was like passive aggressive attacking towards me. I was like, that's so wonderful that this word has changed
Yeah.
your life. Like I was like supportive.
Yeah.
And then I went across the island to another meeting, and there was a guy there who didn't identify as an alcoholic, and no one said anything about the word alcoholic for the entire meeting. And that was when it dawned on
Right.
me, oh my God, my group this is like this is them attacking me without attacking me. And I didn't realize that had been going on the entire time. And so I want to highlight that first of all, because it shows how the people make up the norms in the fellowship. And I had a totally different
Mm.
experience on that side of Bali compared to that side, compared to that side. But that was my issue. And then I ended up going back to the meeting and kind of explaining that. And someone ended up yelling at me in the meeting, like literally standing up and screaming at me, and no one did anything. Like the person moderating, and I had been there for like 30 days, and I was like, wow, this is like really not a way to like welcome someone, like to be shouting at them that they have to take on this term,
Yeah.
And so that was like my first experience, and then I was really addicted to Instagram, and I still am massively struggling with this. I'm trying to get off it because it's like I'm so enmeshed with it because it's my business and I need it to survive, and yet it makes me so sick. And and people were mocking me, like people were heckling me when I shared about it. And and that was something where I was like, okay, first of all, this is crosstalk. Like for you to interrupt me and heckle and make fun of me in the middle of my this is crosstalk. This is not allowed. But there's no one here that's moderating this thing
Yeah.
happening. And anyway, I ended up leaving that part of the island and coming up to this new part of the island. I was like, hey, I'm gonna really get involved now, and I'm gonna call myself an alcoholic, and I'm just gonna, because I want people to like me, I want to be part of it. And then being up here, what I found was I was like, this is just adding more drama to my life. Like I'm in these WhatsApp groups, people are fighting over like the most stupid things, like, you know, your 3 month of service is over, you need to give your position up, like, and people are arguing about people keeping, and I'm watching all this stuff happen, being like, this is like not bringing me serenity.
Yeah.
And I finally just realized, like, I need to just leave this. And so I actually ended up starting this internet tech, this ITAA fellowship. And so I am part of one fellowship, and there's only one other member. And it's, you know, it's so nice to be part of like an open, modern fellowship. We say higher power. There's no assumption that, like, instead of saying you can't have a sponsor of the opposite gender, it's like, don't have a sponsor that you're going to be sexually attracted to. I'm like, this is great. You know, we're not assuming that people are straight. Like, I'm just like, this is like so much better. So I'm no longer really part of AA, but it brought some really great things to my life and brought me that structure and brought me that community. And I just think the people, it's all about the people who are passing on the principles and the manner in which they're doing it. And I can't even imagine what it's like in the States, because if that's what it's like in Bali, which most of the people that come to Bali have kind of like left the matrix, you know, left the norms, left like the rules. So like if this is how you guys are being, then it must be like really extreme in other
Barkley.
Let's go. Come on.
It's like that little toy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was a good visual. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Oh, no, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it is so important to have both perspectives. And again, with it's
Yeah.
so, you know, it's so two-sided. Barkley, you talked a little bit about like not fitting into the box, like you felt like there was a box. What was that experience like?
Well, it's how we started this conversation. You know, what was your expectation of AA? And then the longer I was there, the longer I realized they have an expectation of you being in AA. And so, you know, you're expected to share, you're expected to sponsor, you're expected to have sponsors, you're expected to have sponsees, to go to workshops, and it's like you're drinking a Kool-Aid to where it's like you're all in. And there's no like, maybe it's okay to be half-ass at this instead of like all the way in. And so, you know, Alex made a good point and a good thing that I just remembered that, you know, I heard a pastor, I guess he's a pastor, talk about it in a way that said, you know, I used to not, you know, I used to drink and now I don't drink, but they kind of demonstrated in a way of like, you once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But he wanted to frame it in a way. I don't even. I'm chopping it up. But he said at one time I was an alcoholic, but now I don't choose to say I'm an alcoholic. And it's a closed minded thinking process that can be very uncomfortable to go to when you're already uncomfortable in a way to drink. And so it's there was all these personalities that were, you know, fighting back and forth that made me uncomfortable. I didn't feel safe there, and in a way that to share your openness and then to have somebody come to you at the end of the meeting and say something like, I don't like what you said, you know, and it's like, you come here in a safe spot to share your heart. You want to share your heart. You want it to be accepted. You want it to be received well, like Mr. Rogers would. You know, I love Mr. Rogers. I try to be Mr. Rogers because I needed a Mr. Rogers, and I still need one. But you know, you don't have that Mr. Rogers flair in a meeting sometimes where it's like judgment. And I'm like, I'm over here drinking because I got a dysfunctional family that I hate. I don't like my wife. I don't like my kids. And you're like telling me, you're judging me. I don't like this at all. You know, like, so I mean, none of that's real. Well, some of that's real, but not all of it. But anyway, you want to go somewhere where you can feel safe.
Okay.
And at some point, after you should go to AA to experience all this for yourself, like you have to, it's almost like, I don't know, if you've never been to Vegas, you got to go to Vegas just
It's
to
like a rite of
experience it.
passage.
Yes, you gotta get the stripe, and you gotta get the tat that says I survived AA, or whatever, and to where you can talk about it in a way that that's your experience, strength, and hope, and you may be totally bought and totally sold, and not that, and that may be your life, and that's okay. Like that, if you make AA your life and it works for you, I can't bash that. The ultimate objective is, if you have a desire to stop drinking and you have made this your desire to stop drinking life, then that's you're winning. You're winning at life by doing that. And so I just, we can still win with other alternatives, that's, I don't know, whatever that looks like for you, you have to be the investigator to investigate, what will work for you.
At the beginning, calling myself an alcoholic was like my salvation. Like it gave me the words for what I was at the time.
Yeah.
And that was a person with a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
And what happened was, as I grew, I started to realize that my words had a shit ton of power.
Mm,
And what I called myself, if I wasn't now, I was going to become. I
mm,
was going to continue to believe this thing had power over me. And I didn't like that. I didn't
mm,
like that I was going to be an alcoholic for the rest of my life, and that was going to have that much power over me, which meant
mm.
then I was going to fear it. And I had a problem with how that was framed in my mind. And
Yeah.
so I wanted different language, because I didn't want that to be identifying. I didn't want it to be part of my identity anymore. And so
Yeah.
if I didn't want it to be a part of my identity anymore, I couldn't call myself that.
Yeah.
I had a problem with alcohol. Was I an alcoholic? We can say in the past, yes, yes, I was. I'm not offended by the term. I'm not offended by that. I don't drink anymore. I'm not
Yeah.
one. It's
Yeah.
not something I am. It's not something I do. It's a problem that I had. I don't
Yeah.
need to live that past in my present.
Yeah.
And so what came to be was, the language didn't suit the version of recovery that I felt that I wanted to grow into.
Yeah.
So I stopped, and then my belief system continued to change. How do you continue to grow? Well, this isn't a thing anymore. What other belief would I like to begin to identify that is different than that? And
Yeah.
then so I started to believe that I could be a recovered alcoholic, using the
Yeah.
same term, but
Yeah.
having overcome that obsession.
Yeah.
And now it's not even a term that I use anymore. It's not something that I believe. I believe we can go well past that. And I believe we can live a freaking amazing life without
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
being a part of
Yeah.
us. And I think that's just part of the growth. And where outside of your comfort zone do you want to seek?
Yeah.
I think that's where I got hung up on the alcoholic thing too, and the recovering alcoholic for the rest of your life, because like
Mm,
the addiction played a massive part in a good chunk of my life, and the recovery and getting sober played a big part. But that is so not really even a part of who I am anymore, or it's not a
mhm.
part of my life. It's not something that I identify with. Like, I don't see myself as first and foremost a recovering alcoholic, and then I'm all
Mm,
these other things. Like, that was the catalyst that started a growth journey. That's it.
mm,
So yeah, I don't love the idea of just leaning into that identity forever.
mm.
So moving into like, what does your quote unquote program look like? now? Or how did you find your way into things that did feel more aligned for you? This is like one thing that I actually can talk about
I was going to
because
actually
I had
ask you to take space right now and talk, and you start that first because we've done a lot of talking, and I'm like, this is up a your alley. So
it
I
is.
mhm.
I got so well, first of all, Steve and I met on the I Am Sober app. I found this app on, the Play Store on my phone. I needed a day counter. It turned out there was like a community in there where you could go to the community tab and you could talk to other people who were around the same amount of sobriety as you. You could look ahead and read what people wrote when they hit 1 year, which to me was just mind-boggling at the time. And so reading what people experienced, and I think that's what most people get from early AA is like when they first start going is you get to hear other people's experiences. That's the experience, strength, and hope that they talk about all the time. And in some way, wherever it is that you get that, whether it's like Alex, you got it from Instagram, and I love the Instagram sober community. Steve and I used IAS, that the app. There are so many different places, but hearing other people's stories and experiences changed my life because I'd been trying to get sober for so long and just trying to figure it out on my own with no input. And I felt like I was the only person doing this. So that was huge for me in the beginning, was just finding somebody to read. And then eventually I did start going to some like Zoom groups. But the big thing that kicked off my recovery, the actual work that I did, was a book called Rewired by Erica Spiegelman. And I came across, somebody mentioned it, and I was desperate for any tools or any ideas. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go buy the book like today. And I did. And it's essentially like a build your own recovery program in a book. And it was brilliant. For me, it was
In a
exactly what I
short book
needed.
too.
A short book, really doable. It's like these really easy to read chapters. She breaks it down. So authenticity is the first one. Who are you? And how are you showing up in the world that isn't authentic? And how do you need to start showing up in a way that is? That was huge for me. Like she gives you a journaling, like a whole list of journal questions at the end of each chapter to really reflect and figure out what's going on for you. And so I spent 6 weeks just journaling through authenticity, trying to figure out who I was. And I mean, I've been on an authenticity journey for 4 years now, right? Like you never really
Yeah.
fully grasp it. And then the next one I think was honesty. How are you honest with yourself? How are you honest with others? What does that look like in your life? What do you need to change? And then there was, it goes into evolution. How do you need to grow? Time management. How do you need to change how you're changing your time or spending your time? And so it walks you through these aspects of life that are totally you can grab onto them and you can really figure out what they look like in your life and then decide what you need to do instead of a sponsor telling you this is what you need to do today, which for me, like I'm going to rebel against I think that's just my personality. I'm like, if you're going to tell me what to do, I'm going to do the dead opposite. Right. But this
No
is
way.
you right. This is like you figure out what you need and then you go do it. And I just grabbed onto it. Was exactly what I needed. Steve and I met right around that time. I was like 30 days sober and we started talking and I was like, dude, I'm going to drag you along with me because I need somebody to talk to about all this crazy stuff I'm learning. And it ended up being the best thing for the first 6 months of sobriety. It kept me moving forward. It kept me active. It kept me like reflecting. And so, yeah, that was what kicked it off. Highly recommend the book and
There
having
is
somebody to work through
actually
it with.
like 6 podcast episodes that we recorded on a different podcast that we co-hosted. This was like where we started our whole podcast journey. Complete sidebar, but anyways, there
Don't go
is
listen to it, folks, because
there is
we had no
6
idea what we were
6
doing.
rookie episodes. Rookie episodes for
For
sure.
sure. But we were so passionate about it and so grateful for
Mhm.
that. And that's, I think, something not a lot of people have heard of. A lot of people haven't heard of that book. I don't know, how well known it is, but God, it was what I needed at that moment. So, but what else? What have you guys done? What's that looked like in the early days? What's it look like now? Anybody feel free to jump in.
Something that I didn't expect, being sober is, we talked about social media, or Alex did. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got 28,000 followers on LinkedIn. I've got 23,000 on Facebook and like 10,000 on Instagram. And with that, platform, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but with that kind of, viewership, it's got me in trouble to where I've been so open and honest about my sobriety that it's got me in trouble with the boss that ended up, I walked out uh, one of my last jobs because he didn't like me being so open and honest about my recovery on social media. So I was like, fuck you, I'm out. Like if I'm sober today and I'm like excited about that and I can't share that and that bothers you, I'm out. But with that being so open and honest on social media, it has gotten, I've helped a lot of people that have messaged me and, asked about drinking or sober curious. And it's helped me kind of engage and, stay in the sober mind, if you will, to help others in a way that it's kind of like my service work in a way that, you know, I, I know for sure that I've helped people stay sober and get sober. One of my friends says his ex-girlfriend, like, Barkley, I contribute a lot of her sobriety today to you trying to reach out and help her with your own sobriety and being so open about it. And so, that's been I didn't see that coming. I didn't have that, on the bingo card, for my life and, 46 years old or however old I am. And so that's been a very rewarding experience to I use their negativity to kind of fuel my empowerment of staying sober, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm.
you don't think I can go to Vegas and stay sober? I'm going to go 5 times in the next 5 years, and I'm going to post all of it with non-alcoholic beer. And I'm going to shove it up your ass. And so, like for me, like in a way, it's like, "Fuck you too," It's like I don't know, like I get kind of off on that. That it's like in a way of like, you can't do it, so I'm gonna show you that I can do it in a way that's like, I don't know, that just when I sit and think about how much I was dependent on it, like I used to live to drink and drink to live, and now I'm like, let me tell you why I stopped drinking. I'm like,
Mm.
that it's like a complete 180 that it's a rewarding and powerful experience to be able to post about it and directly help other people with it. And so I love those messages. Hey,
Mhm.
I'm on 30 days. I'm like, fuck yeah. All right. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it fuels my fire that I'm helping somebody else in a you know, unorthodox AA world, I guess, if you will. And so it's like
Mhm.
a way of like my own rebellion, but also helping at the same time. It's a cool experience. I love it. It's great.
Definitely. Oh, it's huge to just reach out and be the person somebody can talk to. It keeps you, as
100%.
Steve and I do that. I mean, that's why part of the reason that we do this podcast is something we
Yeah.
definitely get from this podcast. It keeps you in the mind frame of this is where I was, this is where I am now. I'm not
Yeah.
going back. And it gives you a chance to help other people.
Right.
Um, Alex, I feel like you're going to have to talk a little bit about yoga and how all of that plays into your journey because I know that's such a big part of it. And I think so many people will relate. So, do you want to share some of that with us?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, that was one of the main things that I felt. So this online program that I was part of that helped me get sober, it was amazing, but it was really like, okay, quit drinking, train for a marathon, do some sports, like change your habit was kind of like the foundations of the program. And I remember getting to the end of 100 days and walking this 10K with my uncle, which was very sweet because he's sober. So we, got to do this thing together. But at the same time, I had gone on a yoga teacher training in wherever I was. I was in the States with this yoga author that I really wanted to meet. I'd had his book since I was 18. I was so excited to meet him. And I got down there and I did this training. And he said to me, you should stay on and assist me on this yoga retreat this weekend. And I couldn't stay because I was walking this 10K that I had signed up for as part of this, run a marathon. You got to do like a physical activity to celebrate your 100 days of alcohol freeness. And it felt like the right thing to do at the time because I had committed to do it with my uncle. And that was important. And it was his first, fitness activity. And I didn't want to cancel that on him. I had a realization there that my real growth and my real practice and my real process was more about my spiritual and inward journey and less about like some kind of athletic accomplishment. And that's not to say there's
Mm,
anything wrong with having an athletic accomplishment as part of your sober journey, because that's great. But there wasn't enough space in what I was doing for recognizing, like, becoming a life coach. That's an achievement that you can focus on in your sobriety. Doing your yoga training, that's an achievement. I became a bar and a spin instructor. Like, those are all non-goal oriented achievements that I mean, it had a goal, but it wasn't like a physical kind of thing necessarily for me, as more of the spirit. And so my spiritual practice has become like the foundation of what my sobriety journey is. And I would say I teach spiritual yoga practices because we're drawing on philosophy and weaving that into our practices. And I also teach meditation now, and it's really about, like, how can I regulate my nervous system and bring myself back to a state of neutrality, or like a state of being, so that I can be moving through the world and creating less. In AA, they say, like, you're making amends. You make amends for all the things you do, but then you make an inventory every day, and you go to bed every night and make sure that you don't have more amends out there. And it's kind of like in yoga, there's this law of karma, right? And we're accumulating karma in our life, and if we have a surplus of karma, then we're going to carry that into the next life, right? And so we're always trying to basically have our karmic scorecard at like a state of neutral. And all of these practices, yoga, meditation, everything like that, it's the same thing. It's like, how can I move through the world in that I'm having a positive impact on the people around me, and not causing more suffering and harm. And so that's what it looks like. And I think a lot of people, I do feel like, to bring it back to AA, this was one of the questions I had about AA, because, the 11th step is to have this prayer and meditation practice. And I went to these meditation meetings where it's like there's no technique being taught on, like, how to meditate. We're just sitting silently for 10 minutes, which is nice. But I'm like, this is a missing link, where it's like we're encouraging people to have a practice, but then we're not teaching them, like, how to do the practice. And
Sure.
so that's where I feel that yoga and meditation comes in. It's like giving people the practical tools to progress in that arena.
Hmm. Cool.
Definitely. No, it's the internal work. However you find your way to that internal work, that's when you start finding the magic. And I think that's, something that we cover in this podcast probably every week in some form or another. Is it's what's happening inside of you, in your heart, in your head, how your head and your heart are connecting, that defines recovery. And there's so many different ways to get to that point, but I think that's what you're describing. And
Totally.
it's something that's missing for a lot of people. And I think that that's, when you find people who are like, all right, I'm sober and nothing's changed and I'm miserable and I hate it and I can't stop thinking about alcohol, and that, like, they're like 3 years sober. And that's the part they're missing, is what's going on internally for you, what's going on with your spirit and your soul and your heart and your head. And that's where the real recovery magic happens, however it is that you get there. But definitely. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about what your program looks like? We don't have to call it a program, but that's,
You can call it whatever you
it's
want to
kind of the
call it.
term
It's
that I think is generally used, right?
yeah, I mean, I don't. If you want to, I was going to say call it whatever you want to call it, but I don't even really have a program. What my program, and you've heard me say this before too, like, there are people out there that don't have problems with things that live a healthy life. They have healthy habits. They do healthy things. They've never had to, like, maybe reinvent themselves to the point that I've had to recreate healthy habits. But I mean, what do healthy people do? Healthy people they communicate. They're honest. They connect with other people. They do good things for themselves. So they work out, or they're physical. They do that exercise. Like, they have self-reflection. They take action on things in their life that aren't going the way that they're supposed to, based on things that they can control.
Yeah.
Like, what does a healthy human being look like? And what does that look like to me? And how can I take that practice and that program and do that for me? And so I think that's what that is. And I think it involves a self-reflection piece for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, it involves there's an action piece in almost all of it. What am I going to do to support the life that I plan on wanting to live? And then my actions need to follow through with that. And then I need to self-reflect and be like, oh, okay, well, I fucked that up. That didn't work out. What am I going to do different? What lesson did I learn from failing?
Mhm.
Do I need to do something different? Do I need to go try again so I can learn that lesson one more time the hard way? How many times do I need to go and learn that lesson the hard way? I think what it comes down to, Julie, and like my program is connecting with people, and it's trying to be like the healthiest version of myself, using techniques and using things, a lot of things everyone else, other people do. I'll look at it and go, huh, like that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I should give that one a try and see how I feel, see how my body feels after that. Like eating paleo for like 6 months straight just to see how my body feels and give it like a true, good, honest try at
Mhm.
how is something like that going to improve my life? Is this good for me? If the answer is no, I should do something probably different. And like, I'm not perfect by any means. I think still to this day, a main part of my program is talking about it, is finding a place and having safe people. And the other thing that I think we all have talked about, but really haven't called it right out, there's purpose in growth.
Yeah.
I'm willing to look at myself and say like, this is where I want to grow. I'm willing to be curious enough to say, I want to know more about that and how I can use that to improve me. And maybe I'll get to see the benefits of that later on in life. And normally that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can speak for Steve and myself because we've been on this journey essentially together this whole time. But I if you look at the broad spectrum of our recoveries, it's essentially, this is uncomfortable. What can I learn from it? Over and over and over again, sometimes on a daily or even hourly basis. This is uncomfortable. What can I learn from it? And that, when you look at every one of those situations and compile them over the course of the 4 years that we've been doing this, that is what our recovery has been. Sometimes it's, totally failed moments in relationships. Sometimes it's, how we show up in life emotionally. Sometimes it's just bad choices we make that we have to suffer the consequences of. But that is growth, right? This is uncomfortable. What can I learn from it? That starts out with your first craving and it doesn't ever stop. That is what growth looks like. So I'm going to wrap this up with you guys. I'm going to ask you one last question. What is one step that someone could take today if they want to try to get sober and they don't want to use AA? Alex, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say what I would recommend is to find Quitlet podcasts or social media profiles. Like, just find a resource, because that's not going to require you to, like, you don't have to be vulnerable. You don't have to like put yourself out there in a meeting or anything. You can just listen to someone else's story and learn from it. And in every one of the podcasts or the books I read, there were like nuggets of wisdom that I took from it. So there's so many different pathways and stories, and I would say just get open to what's available.
Awesome. Great answer. Yes. Fully support the podcasts out there, folks. No, no,
There's a
that's
podcast
absolutely.
called
It's
Through the Glass Recovery Podcast. Just saying, you might be listening to it right now, but
no, I think it's brilliant. And you're right. It's not vulnerable. When you do that, you're opening yourself up to so many options, and you don't have to get vulnerable until you're ready. What about you, Barkley? What would you say if someone's wanting to get sober without AA? What's one step you would suggest they take?
Um, well, I would say go to AA, and then you can get sober without AA, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense. And so, y- some things that I would did with AA was I would keep the desire chip in my pocket, at a game, at a wedding, at a concert, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, to where it reminds you your why.
Mm.
And so I had a full serenity prayer that I'd also keep in my wallet that was very good to me that I would read often. But, you have to know your motivation of why you're quitting and maybe write that down and stare at it and look at it. And so maybe that's writing down your last drink of what that looked like and how that made you feel to where you can go back to that moment. And that's kind of helps you with your why. But the biggest thing for me was, am I stopping drinking for myself or am I stopping drinking for others? And in the beginning, I think I was stopping for others when it didn't work. And when I started to stop for myself, it did work. And so
Mhm.
that's also an important part of my journey of you have to stop for yourself or it's going to be hard to stop for somebody else. And so that's kind of inside outside kind of answer about AA and sobriety. But
Definitely. Yeah. And that's huge. I think that's one of the most important things. We can't do this for anybody else but ourselves. We can't do it for our
yeah.
kids. We can't do it for our parents. We can't do it for our boss. Nobody's going to be able to make us do this. We have to do it for ourselves. And I think that's something that's, everybody learns, I think, probably the hard way. But yeah, it's absolutely spot on, right? Learn the hard way multiple times. Um, Yeah, for sure. I think for me, if I was gonna suggest one thing for someone to try, it would be to find a community. You don't have to
Mm,
talk. For me, I found a community of people. I kept my camera off because I was on Zoom. Um, Kept my camera off. I didn't say a word, but I could listen and I could watch these people interact and share their life and their stories and listen to the little bits of their day, just normal people living lives and doing it without alcohol. And that was precious to me
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
first few weeks. So definitely, I think that, AA does offer connection, and that's one of the most valuable things. That's one of the things that AA got so right is
Yeah.
that you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are fighting the same battle you are.
Yeah.
And that gives you a certain, I don't know, it just gives you something that nothing else can. So, um, and on that note, I'm going to plug the fact that Steve and I do host a Zoom meeting every Monday night, which is very similar to the ones that we started out in. But seriously, if you want a place to show up, turn your camera off and just listen to humans be human without
Mhm.
alcohol, it's a great option. So, yeah, Steve.
Julie, of the 4 years of experience I have right now, there is one common thread that shows up over and over and over again that I've seen over and over and over again. And when people make this one single change, it changes for them. And you said it, it's community. Sobriety is incredibly hard to do on your own.
Mm,
And overcoming that one piece opens so many doors.
mm.
It's hard to even put into words.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm going to say to anybody who wants to get sober without AA is that don't try and do it alone. There is no
Mhm.
power. You don't get a fucking reward for there's no medal. There's no one that's going to give you a medal out there that's going to say you got first place. You got sober by yourself. Literally make it easy on you. There's communities out there. There's people out there. There's so many people out there willing to listen. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
it's incredibly hard to do on your own, and you don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
so I want to say thank you, Alex, all the way from Bali. Tomorrow for you. It's not even Tuesday anymore. Thank you so much for finding the time and joining us. It's really a pleasure to see you again. Barkley, the same to you. It's always a pleasure to see you and have another conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks for
You
having
You
too.
us.
too.